to a crazy little thing called Thought Podcast with me, your host, Luke Richardson. And this episode is episode 4, Discovering Your Mental Health. We've already talked on previous episodes about how the mind works, how life truly works, and it's via the vehicle of thought. With thought being the missing link to our mental health, and which also is the key to our illusory mental sickness. And we've also discussed about how our level of consciousness can have a massive impact on our mental health. So basically, a lack of consciousness, a lack of understanding about our level of consciousness can contribute to, mental sickness, illusory thoughts about the outside world. So I want to take this podcast audio recording. I want to take this opportunity on this recording to, go a hell of a lot deeper with you guys. We talked, as I said, we talked about thought, we talked about consciousness. I want to discuss about something that we can't see. So basically, because we have our intellect, there's only so much we can see of the world. We see our own world with our intellect, through our thinking. But beyond our thinking, there is a world much more vast than just our thinking. I mean, think about it. Think of the universe. We know we're here on Earth. We know that there are other planets in our solar system that we've obviously never been to, but we have no idea if there's life on there. But that gives us a clue of how massive the universe is, and there's I think there is I don't think I know there's a formless energy out there, a world we can't see, basically, because of the gift of thought we have is great, but it only limits us to the life we experience. There is so much vastness out there that is invisible to us. That's huge, when you understand that there is so much going on behind the scenes, the background cast of your play that you have. So basically, let's say you're living your life, and it's a film reel from the get go, from when you were a baby to this point. Has always been a film reel. Older people know what a film reel is, but the younger generations may not. So, on the film reel, there's images of a film going on. That's your life. That's been your life since day one of your life to now. It's been a film reel, and that film reel has pictures on there that plays each moment of your life. And as the film reel adapts and changes for you, it could be a good film, and as it keeps rolling, it could be a bad film. If you want to have a good experience, you put a good film reel in. If you're having a bit of a more negative experience, you've put a bad film reel in. So that film reel that I'm trying to describe to you, that film reel that you have, that's been slotted into your mind, that's going round and round and round, it's all you can see, it's all you can experience. And the funny thing is, despite it being real to you, it's not real. It's only real because you're conjuring it up. You're the magician of your own trick, if you want to look at it that way. You are an illusionist. It's funny, isn't it? People say, "Oh, I'm not a creative person," and I think when people say that, they mean it in terms of an art, but it's particularly, artistic. They're not very good at doodling, not very good at painting pictures, not very good at using a computer to design graphics. I'm not a very creative person. And the hilarious thing about that is, humans are the most creative people imaginable because we create all day long. So what's the point in all of this I'm trying to make? Well, the point I'm trying to make in the point I'm trying to make with all of this is that if you have a film reel going on in your own mind, that's not technically real. It's real. It's going on. It's in your own mind. It's real to you. But the fact it can change in a heartbeat, it just shows how unrooted it is. You're 1 foot away from a different experience in your life. Now, as I said, behind the scenes is something that's bigger, that can't be touched. That's full of possibility. That's the it's basically the essence of life. It's what drives you. It's what controls the tide coming in and out. It's what changes seasons. It's what creates the weather. It's what creates, babies. It's massive. And you are more than the film reel that's going on in your own mind, the thought factory you're making, the movie, the experience. You're more than that. If you're maybe having a good experience, you're probably not concerned about that because we tend not to get too concerned about good experiences as we do to bad ones. The point I'm trying to make is you are that. You are the vastness. I am. You are. Your neighbour is. Your boss is. The lollipop lady is. The people who work at restaurants are. The people who work at the cinema are. The people who work at McDonald's are. Everyone is that vastness, that energy we can't see. We can't get there with our own intellect. You can't get there with your intellect because your intellect is certainly limited to how you think. But there are so many possibilities into what you think because of that vastness out there. It might not make any sense to you what I'm saying. That's okay. Don't worry about it. The problem I have on these podcasts or the recordings is I've only got my technology and my words coming out of my mouth to explain this as the best I can. As does everybody else who has an inkling, a deep understanding of what's going on that's bigger than our everyday thinking. You can't convince someone of that, what I'm trying to explain. You have to kind of let other people try and see it for themselves if they can get that thinking away, they can push it away and just allow the wisdom, the invisible energy that I've been explaining to come through to them. If someone can do that particular person is going to thrive, Not all day, every day. It comes through when we learn to relax, because this is the problem. Thinking comes to us so fast and it looks so real that we get fooled by it each and every time. I'm trying to, explain this and teach this, and I'm the biggest what's the word I'm trying to look for here? Is fool the right word? Probably not. I'm not a fool because everyone falls for it, but I'm very gullible to it. That's probably the word I can think of right now. I put it this way: if the illusion was a bus, and I'm at the bus stop deciding whether to get on the bus and go for a ride with my thinking, or just stay at the bus stop and let the bus go past, I'm definitely a person that's more inclined to get on the bus than not and go for a journey. One that I wouldn't particularly wish to make, but I fall for it a lot, and I imagine you do too. And so does many people around the world. That doesn't make us bad people. That doesn't make us stupid. It's it makes us unashamedly human, I guess. That's the human experience right there, the intellect experience. But there's spiritual experience out there as well. If you can just learn to take a grip off that everyday thinking, all those problems you've got going on in your mind, all that aggravation you've got going on. If you've got problems and anxiety and mental health issues that come with that, negative thinking, just take a moment just to kind of remember what I'm saying, that you are more than the negative experience that you've got going on within your own mind. You are the invisible energy of life. And that's a pretty cool thing to know if you know it. The sad thing is a lot of people go through their life not realizing that. They'll go from the day they were born to the day they die, not ever coming across this understanding of, how life and the mind really works, and they'll go through life, having pretty destructive thoughts, a lot of anger in their life, a lot of blaming on people, a lot of blaming on situations. A victim mentality. They're not a victim. Okay, the circumstances might not be particularly very, their circumstances might not particularly be very, admirable, but they came from the same energy as everybody else. Just because someone has a lot of money, has built a business and, or inherited a lot of cash, does not make them any better than someone who doesn't have a couple of pennies to rub together. Because we're all the same, and we've come from the same energy. I hope you really see this. As I say, I'm doing my best with my words to explain the point I'm trying to make here. That your temporary illusory thinking is just, it's just not you, and it creates more problems than it's worth for you. With this understanding, you can go to work and have an easier day than you could ever imagine if you remember this understanding. If you don't, you tend to fall into the, like I've just explained about getting on the bus of, not attractive thinking. If you don't understand it, have a deep understanding about thought, a deep understanding about consciousness, and a deep understanding about the spiritual essence of life, you'll tend to get on that bus and go for a ride and, feel like a victim. That's not what we are, you or me or anybody else is. We have every right to be here on this planet and feel good, because that is our invisible energy. It's the default setting, it's our birthright to feel that way. You weren't born to be anxious about a job, about a situation, about money, or all these other problems. Because if you think about it, let's stick to money. You have £1,000 in your bank account, or $1,000, and one minute you have a perspective of, oh, that's great, I've got £1,000 in my bank account, excellent, that really helps me to sleep at night. And you do, your reality is that £1,000 is a hell of a lot of money, and you think the £1,000 gives you, a good sense of mental peace. And I've got £1,000 just in case something really bad happens. A week later, the £1,000 is still in the bank account, and then your mind starts to wander. Your mind starts to create this illusory thinking that I've been trying to explain to you. That's not real. Same £1,000, the same £1,000 is in that bank account. However, you start to make up a story in your own mind that £1,000 isn't enough money for X, Y, Z, and I really could do with £10,000. And then you procrastinate about it, you just sleep over it. Oh, it's the same £1,000 that is creating in both those experiences, and then a week later comes, the £1,000 is still there. And then your film reel changes, your reality changes. I mean, you start to see the £1,000 as something that's quite positive again, something that's quite a bit of a security blanket for you. Oh, I don't know why I was so worried about wanting £10,000. The £1,000 is absolutely ample for me, for what I think, may or may not happen. It's all made up. I do it. Just because I'm telling you this doesn't mean I'm superhuman. I don't go through those experiences like you probably do. Like you're listening, like you're. I go through these experiences just as much as you do. It's all made up. We're all innocent in it. Think about a friend. 1 minute they're your best mate, best bud, couldn't live without them. And then the next minute, or the next moment, or the next day, the friend is driving you crazy. It's the same friend, and you're just changing the film reel, the story in your mind about that friend. A friend hasn't particularly done anything to. It might look that way, They might have said something or done something to change your thinking about them, but that's all they've done. They've only done something in the outside world that you've kind of thought about, hooked onto, and created a story about. The point I'm making is there is an invisible energy out there that is bigger than our tiny little minds that's creating these stories all day long that we're limited to. The human potential is there because if you think about it, you could have 1,000 different realities and thoughts about money, or any situation for that matter. You could be extremely relaxed about money, or an amount of money, or you could be very, very insecure with an amount of money. And that's why I think this podcast, this audio recording, this YouTube video, however you're watching it and taking this in, that's why I think that discovering your mental health is a very fitting title for this podcast, because you can discover your mental health via this understanding, this explaining I've been doing. You can discover your mental health in any minute, any moment of your life. You could discover it at 3 o'clock in the morning. You could discover it on the way to work. You can discover it in the midst of some very challenging circumstances, which just proves the circumstances are never the driver with your experience or your reality. You are incredible. You are amazing. It just may not look like you are to you. It just may not look like you are amazing to you from time to time because of a lot of mental clutter you have going on. And that's okay, there's nothing wrong with having mental noise going on in your own mind. The problem comes from when we don't understand where the mental noise is coming from. If we are basically blaming him, her, this, that, money, football, weather. I won't keep naming topics and that, because you get the picture. You could have 1,000 excuses to why you might be unhappy. There's nothing wrong with having negative thoughts, but if you're pinpointing it onto something, that's a sign of, of, misunderstanding. If you're a person that has bad thoughts, if you're someone who's having bad experiences, but even if it's just a little bit, if you know that, if you understand, even just a little bit, but it's not coming from the outside world, you're actually probably classed as a mentally healthily driven person, because you know that you are the creator of your mental trauma, and you know you are the creator of what can resolve the mental trauma. Have you ever noticed that when you've got a noisy mind, that you've not necessarily done anything in the outside world to make it better, but all of a sudden you feel better? Now, how can that be? That's not because you've turned your world upside down, your circumstances, to make it better. That's because you've changed your thinking. But we get confused because we link the two things together. We assume when we feel better that something outside has done it to us. And that's just simply not the case. I've got 2 young daughters, and they are, not just them, all children are a great example of this understanding that I'm trying to explain to you. Because when you look at a child, they go through a roller coaster of emotions day in, day out. My kids are the same. One minute they'll be absolutely happy, and then next minute they'll be sad. But have you noticed that they don't seem to particularly hang on to the bad for very long? They could be crying about something, absolute tears. The next minute, they're 10 minutes later, they're back to their mental health, and it's as if the problem they were crying about was never a problem in the first place. Now, that's because they've discovered their mental health. For kids, that's the wonderful thing about children. They discover their mental health, the real them, much quicker than adults do. Adults tend to, as they get older, especially when they become teenagers and beyond, seem to start a misunderstanding process from that point. We get a bad thought experience, and because we're more conscious about that, we seem to go, oh, what's that? And then we hang on to it. We make it a problem, and we fertilise it. We pour water on it. We pour water on that nasty thought plant, and it starts to grow. Or another way of looking at it, we go to look at the bad experience and bad thoughts as a hotel. We go and get a reservation there. We go and book a hotel room there and stay there until we decide to vacate. Say children are extremely good at just letting thoughts and experiences flow through them. They're never riveted to their thinking for very long. Michael Neal, who I'll put a few links to his work on this in this audio recording and YouTube video, explains it very well. That he realised that when Michael Neal discovered this understanding as well, he realised that babies didn't need therapy. And it's true. When do you see a baby go? Babies and children cry. They don't get sent to a shrink to discuss the problem, do they? Because they don't understand it as such, because they're children. But they have a new experience of life in a matter of minutes, and then the situation changes for them. Their world changes, and they don't hang on to the bad experience they had a few moments ago. Whereas, as I say, adults, we hang on to things. We grip them tight. What's this? This bad experience. What is it? Why am I having it? How do I resolve it? And so on and so on and so on. I was on holiday a couple of weeks ago with my family, and when we were on the runway to jet off back to the UK from the place we were holidaying at, I had a I had a thought about how I had a thought then about how what a good way it would be to explain this understanding in terms of the role thought plays in our life. And Heathrow Airport's a good example of it, because in London, because I think there's a stat that a plane arrives and departs there every 30 seconds. Now, thoughts come and go within our mind a lot quicker than 30 seconds. Like, you're talking milliseconds, even quicker than that. But you can use Heathrow Airport and its runways as a good example of how thought works. You've got thoughts that are on the runway, and you know, say thoughts are on the Heathrow Airport runway in your own mind, the runway in your own mind. They are thoughts you are thinking about. If they're on the runway and on the tarmac, they are thoughts you are having, whether that's good or bad. Okay. If a thought is jetting off on the runway, let's say it's on the runway and it's jetting off somewhere else, that's a thought that's leaving your mind. And if it's coming onto the runway, it's a thought that's arriving into your mind. And that's a good way, it's a good metaphor of explaining how thought works. They come and go, just like planes at airports come and go. They're not there all the time. They're coming and going constantly. And if you can understand that's all that's happening, you're free. Because you are not that. You are not. It just feels like it's you. Doesn't it? It feels so real. And it's so cool that it's so cool to think about, but it doesn't become particularly cool if it's giving you chronic stress and anxiety. I used to be a project manager at a company, and I won't go into it too much. I was pretty stressed in that job. I'll change the wording. I thought I was stressed. It wasn't particularly the work at the company that was driving my stress, although it seemed that way to me. But when I deeply understood the role of thought and how it worked, all that was going on was me. It was me causing my own upset. It was me causing my own stress. Okay, the work at my old job probably amplified it, but it wasn't the main driver. My own inner engine was the thought driver of my stressful experience. Because I am that formless energy, as are you, as are everyone else around on this planet. There is no human being on Earth, or any creature for that matter, who isn't that formless, invisible energy. And that's where your mental health lies, within that space. That is discovering your mental health. I hope you got a lot out of this one. And I say I'll put this on Spotify podcast. I'll also, if you prefer, again, to watch the video, the YouTube version of this recording, I'll put it on there as well. And I say Michael Neal gives some great quotes, like the babies don't need therapy quote. I'll put a couple of links to his TED Talks on there as well, if you'd like to have a watch of those at some point. Okay, thanks guys, thanks for listening, much appreciate it. if you have listened, I very much appreciate you taking the time out to listen to this video. And if it helps with any mental health problems you might have, that's absolutely fantastic for me. I feel very humbled if you are being helped and served by these recordings. Take care. I'll see you on the next one. Bye bye.